Blood pounded in my ears as I stared at my sister, Camille, across the glossy oak table. The attorney had just finished reading Dad's will, and Camille was basking in her triumph, a smug smile tugging at her lips. She got everything: the estate, the stocks, the savings. It was what she had always wanted, what she had schemed for, and yet something was off. "Wait," Camille said suddenly, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the legal papers. "What's this?" I forced myself to remain still, fighting back the urge to smirk. I had known this moment was coming. Mom's letter, the one thing Camille hadn't expected. The attorney slid a thick, aged envelope across the table toward me. It was yellowed, delicate, sealed with a deep red wax stamp, the symbol of a family secret neither of us fully understood. Camille snatched the envelope before I could reach it. She was always like that. Firstborn, first in line, first to take everything she could. But as she tore open the letter, her expression darkened. I watched as the color drained from her face. For the first time, Camille looked afraid. Camille was always first. Firstborn, first to win, first to take whatever she wanted. Growing up, she was the golden child, the one everyone admired, the one who could do no wrong. Dad doted on her, showering her with praise, calling her his legacy. She excelled at everything. Straight A student, captain of the debate team, the perfect socialite. It wasn't just that she was smart. She was ruthless. Even as kids, she played games to win, not just to have fun. And then there was me. I was the quiet one, the one people overlooked, the afterthought. I preferred books over boardrooms, art over business meetings. Where Camille thrived under Dad's harsh expectations, I wilted. Not because I wasn't capable, but because I saw the price of his approval, the constant competition, the never-ending hunger for power. Dad never tried to hide his favoritism. "You should be more like your sister," he would say, shaking his head at me. "Camille is strong. She understands how the world works." I understood more than he realized. I saw how Camille manipulated people, how she twisted every situation to her advantage. When we were kids, she convinced me to give her my allowance, promising to pay me back. She never did. In high school, she stole my idea for a school project and won a scholarship because of it. She never even thanked me. But the worst betrayal came later, when Mom got sick. While I sat by Mom's bedside, holding her frail hand, Camille was in Dad's office, positioning herself as his successor. She controlled the hospital decisions, handled the estate, making sure that when the inevitable happened, she would be the one in power. And Dad let her. But what Camille didn't realize was that Mom saw through her. She saw the way Camille only came around when Dad was watching. She knew her love was performative, and she knew Camille was after one thing: the fortune. So, while Camille played the perfect daughter, Mom did something no one expected. She chose me, and she left me with a secret that would change everything. The night before Mom died, she called me into her room. The air smelled of lavender and medicine, the scent of a battle she was losing. She looked smaller than I remembered, fragile, as if she was already slipping away, leaving behind only the hollow frame of the woman who had once held our family together. But when she took my hand, her grip was firm, steady. "You'll need this one day," she whispered, pressing something cold and metallic into my palm. I looked down and saw a small, ornate key. Its gold surface was aged, the design intricate, a rose entwined with a serpent. I ran my fingers over it, confused. It wasn't a house key. It wasn't anything I recognized. "Mom," I said softly, glancing at the nightstand, cluttered with prescription bottles and half-empty cups of tea. "What is this for?" She exhaled slowly, her tired eyes searching mine. "It's for the truth." A chill ran down my spine. "Don't tell your father," she added, her voice barely above a whisper. "Or Camille. I didn't understand. Camille had been playing the devoted daughter, hovering at Mom's bedside whenever Dad was watching. She handled Mom's medications, the doctor visits, the decisions. But here, in this quiet moment, Mom wasn't calling for Camille. She was calling for me. "You've always been different," she murmured, her fingers tightening around mine. "You see things for what they are. You know who people really are. That's why I'm trusting you." I swallowed hard. Trusting me with what? A small, knowing smile touched her lips, but she didn't answer. Instead, she closed her eyes. And that was the last real conversation we ever had. I kept the key. For years, it sat in the back of my jewelry box, hidden among tangled necklaces and forgotten trinkets. I tried to convince myself that it didn't matter, that Mom had been delirious, that it was just another one of her stories. But I was wrong, because now, as Camille sat across from me reading Mom's letter, her face drained of color, I knew the key was more than a symbol. It was the beginning of the end. Dad hadn't been dead for 24 hours before Camille made her move. It started at the funeral. She stood at the podium, dressed in elegant black, delivering a eulogy so polished, so perfect, that people wept. Not because of what she said, but because she knew exactly how to make them cry. She spoke of Dad's legacy, his brilliance, his business empire. She barely mentioned Mom, and when she did, it was as an afterthought, just a footnote in Dad's grand story. I stood in the front row, numb, watching as she performed grief, and then, after the last flower had been laid, she went straight to work. Camille had been preparing for this moment for years. While I sat with Mom in hospital rooms holding her frail hands, Camille was with Dad, learning, maneuvering, positioning herself as the rightful heir. She took control of the house. She took control of the bank accounts. She took control of everything. I was locked out before I even realized it was happening. "Don't take it personally," she said when I confronted her, sitting behind Dad's desk like she had already moved in. "You were never really interested in any of this." I clenched my fists. "That doesn't mean you get to cut me out completely." She sighed dramatically, as if I was an annoyance, a distraction from the empire she was now ruling. "You don't even understand half of what Dad built." "I do, and someone has to protect it." By someone, she meant herself. But what she didn't know, what she could never have anticipated, was that Mom had left me something too. A secret, a key, and a letter that changed everything. For the first time in Camille's life, she wasn't in control. And when she sat across from me at the attorney's office, gloating over her victory, she had no idea that her world was about to fall apart. I just had to wait. And the moment she opened Mom's letter, I saw it, the exact second she realized she had already lost. Camille's hands trembled as she read. She wasn't used to being caught off guard. She thrived on control, on knowing every piece of the game before making a move. But this was something she hadn't planned for. I watched as her eyes flickered across the page, her lips parting slightly, her perfectly poised expression cracking for the first time. I already knew what the letter said. I had read it days ago when the attorney sent it to me privately. Mom had left me something far more valuable than money. A bank account Dad never knew about. A safe deposit box registered under Mom's maiden name. A property with her name and mine alone. But it wasn't just about assets. It was about the truth. Camille swallowed hard and turned the page, her manicured fingers gripping the letter so tightly I thought it might tear. Then she froze. She had reached the part about the lockbox. Mom's words were clear. "Inside this box is everything your father never wanted you to know. Everything I hid to protect you both. Camille, if you're reading this, it means you've already taken what you think is yours. But you don't know everything, and you never will, because that part belongs to your sister." Camille looked up at me, her face pale. What the hell is this? I leaned back, crossing my arms. Mom's last wish. Her jaw clenched. This doesn't make sense. She didn't have money of her own. She did, I said calmly. She just never let Dad know. Camille shook her head as if denying it would make it disappear. This has to be a mistake. The attorneys would have told me. They didn't know either. The documents were sealed. Mom had it arranged long before she got sick. I tilted my head. She didn't trust Dad, and she definitely didn't trust you. Her nostrils flared. That's a lie. I pulled a second envelope from my bag and slid it across the table. Then open this. She hesitated, but I saw it, the flicker of fear in her eyes, because she knew deep down that Mom had outplayed her. And inside that envelope was proof that Camille's perfect life was built on a lie. Camille ripped open the second envelope, her fingers trembling. She scanned the contents, her lips moving slightly as she read, her face draining of color with each passing second. I knew what she was seeing. Pages of handwritten letters, aged but carefully preserved, written in Mom's elegant cursive. Letters she had never meant for Dad to find. Camille's eyes darted to mine, wild and desperate. This isn't real. Oh, it's real, I said calmly, watching her unravel. The letters weren't just ordinary correspondence, they were love letters. Not to Dad, to someone else. For years, Mom had hidden a truth that would have shattered Dad's entire world, that before she married him, she had been in love with another man. A love that never faded, not even after she built a life with our father. And in those letters, she admitted everything. I never stopped loving you. I tried to be the wife he needed, the mother my daughters deserved, but my heart has always belonged to you. I had to choose between security and love, and I made the wrong choice. Camille's breathing was uneven. If people see these, they'll know that Mom never truly loved Dad. I finished for her. Camille shook her head violently, her desperation morphing into rage. This would destroy his reputation, his legacy, his image, I corrected, my voice sharper now. That's all you care about, isn't it? Not Mom, not the truth, just how this makes you look. She didn't deny it. Of course she didn't. For Camille, everything was about power, perception, control. If this got out, it wouldn't just stain Dad's perfect legacy, it would expose the cracks in hers. Her eyes darted back to the letters, her mind racing. I knew what she was thinking, how to bury this, how to silence me. But she couldn't, because Mom had already taken that choice away. The lockbox isn't just letters, Camille, I said, my voice soft but lethal. It holds something worse. She swallowed hard. What do you mean? I leaned in slightly, letting the moment hang between us. You'll find out soon enough. For the first time in our lives, Camille wasn't in control, and she knew it. Camille was unraveling. She clutched the letters in her shaking hands, her knuckles turning white. I could see her mind working, spinning through every possible way to fix this, to bury it before it ruined everything she had clawed her way to inherit. No one else has seen these, right? She asked, her voice tight. Just us? I smiled, slow and deliberate. Why? Thinking of destroying them? Her nostrils flared. This isn't a game. Oh, but it is, Camille, I said, leaning forward. And for once, you're losing. Her jaw clenched so hard I thought she might crack a tooth. These letters don't change anything. I still have the estate, the company, everything Dad built. But what if Dad didn't build it alone? I interrupted, watching her flinch. She blinked, confusion flashing across her face. What are you talking about? I pulled out a third envelope, this one thicker, filled with official documents. Camille hesitated this time, but she grabbed it. She tore it open and skimmed through the pages, her breath hitching as she reached the truth. Our mother hadn't just hidden her love letters, she had hidden an entire business. Before she married Dad, She had co-founded a company with the man from those letters, the same man she had loved before Dad came into the picture, the same man she had never truly let go of. And the worst part? The company Dad used to build his empire had started with Mom's money. Camille stared at the paperwork, her face a mixture of horror and disbelief. Dad always made it seem like he built everything from nothing, I said. Like he was the genius, the visionary. But in reality, Mom was the foundation, and she kept that secret because she knew exactly what Dad would do if he found out. Camille's mouth opened and closed. She had no words. Without Mom, Dad wouldn't have had an empire, I continued. And without Dad, you wouldn't have anything. Her head snapped up. That hit her, because now she understood. If this got out, her inheritance wasn't just at risk. It was never truly hers to begin with. For the first time in her life, Camille was powerless, and I wasn't going to save her. Camille had spent years perfecting the art of control, manipulating, scheming, ensuring she was always one step ahead. But as she sat across from me, gripping the documents with trembling hands, I saw something I had never seen in her before. Fear. She dropped the papers onto the table, her breath shaky. This doesn't mean anything, she muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. I smiled. Oh, but it does. She shot me a glare. Even if Mom helped build Dad's empire, it doesn't change the fact that I'm the one who inherited it. I shrugged. Maybe. But what happens when the world finds out that Dad wasn't the genius businessman he pretended to be? That he built his success on Mom's hidden fortune? I leaned in. Do you think his investors would like that? His business partners? The board of directors? Camille's eyes darkened. She hated when I was right. This would destroy everything, she whispered, more to herself than to me. Yeah, I said, tilting my head. It would. For years, Camille had rigged the game in her favor. She had always been the one calling the shots, making sure I stayed in her shadow. Not anymore. For once, I had the upper hand. She exhaled sharply, composing herself. So, what do you want? She asked, her voice cold and controlled again. Money? Shares in the company? What's your price? I laughed. You really think this is about money? Camille blinked, genuinely confused. Then what do you want? I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. I had already won, and she knew it. I want you to know that you lost, I said simply. That no matter how hard you fought to be Dad's perfect heir, you'll always be standing on a foundation Mom built, one you had no idea even existed. Camille's face twisted with rage, but she had nothing left to say. I gathered my things and stood. Enjoy your inheritance, Camille, I said. It's all yours, for now. As I walked out, I didn't have to turn around to know she was watching me leave. For the first time in her life, Camille wasn't in control, and I had never felt more free. Camille thought the worst had passed. She believed that once the shock wore off, she'd find a way to fix this, to rewrite the story, bury the truth, and take back control. That was always her strength, wasn't it? Twisting reality until it bent in her favor. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't finished yet, because Mom's secrets didn't end with the business. There was something else, something that would turn Camille's entire world upside down. It started with the letters, the ones Mom wrote to him. I had spent the last week searching, following every clue Mom had left behind, and I found him. The man from the letters, Mom's first love. His name was Daniel Carter, a name Camille had never heard before, a name Dad had spent his life pretending didn't exist. But Daniel wasn't just some long-lost lover. He was alive. And when I met him, he handed me something I never expected, a folder. Inside, I found a birth certificate. At first, I didn't understand why he was giving it to me. But then I saw the date, the name of the child, Camille's birth certificate. I felt my pulse in my ears as I read the words that changed everything. Father, unknown. My breath caught. I looked up at him, my fingers tightening around the paper. You mean? Daniel's expression was soft but certain. Your father, he's not Camille's. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Everything we had ever been told about our family, about Camille's place in it, it was all a lie. Camille had spent her entire life proving she was Dad's true heir, fighting for his approval, believing she was the rightful successor, but she never was. She had no claim to his empire. None at all. And she had no idea. Yet. I glanced down at the folder one last time, then tucked it under my arm. Camille had spent her life taking things from me. Now I was going to take something from her, the truth. Camille called me 3 days later. Her voice was different this time, not cold, not controlled. It was raw, frantic. You need to come to the house, she said, breathless. Now! I didn't ask why. I already knew. When I arrived, she was waiting in Dad's office, the same chair he used to sit in, the same desk where he built his empire. But she didn't look powerful anymore. She looked small, shaken. She had the birth certificate spread out in front of her. I shut the door behind me, letting the silence stretch between us. You knew, she finally whispered. Yes. She gripped the edge of the desk. How long? I shrugged. A few days. Camille let out a hollow laugh, shaking her head. A few days, she repeated, like the words were a joke, like they were poison. She had spent her entire life chasing Dad's approval, fighting for his inheritance, believing she was his legacy. But in the end, she wasn't even his daughter. I walked closer, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Funny, isn't it? I said lightly. All these years you acted like you were better than me, like I was the outsider. But turns out you're the one who never belonged. Camille's jaw tightened. I deserve this, she said through gritted teeth, her eyes burning with fury. I earned it. I laughed. You can't earn something that was never yours to begin with. Her breath hitched, and for the first time, I saw it. The realization. The understanding that no matter what she did, no matter how hard she fought, she could never change the truth. She had lost. And this time, there was nothing she could do to take it back. I leaned forward, resting my hands on the desk. The lawyers are going to have a field day with this. The board will eat you alive. The media, they'll tear you apart. I tilted my head, enjoying the way she flinched. But don't worry, I'll be watching, every second. Camille said nothing. She had no fight left. I turned to leave, pausing at the door. Enjoy your inheritance, I said, throwing her words back at her. And as I stepped outside into the sunlight, for the first time in my life, I felt free.